Hi designers, it's Haley with Silver Moon Design School and welcome to my tutorial today. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to create a squeeze tube for lotions, creams, hand sanitizer, whatever format fits inside of the squeeze tube bottle. I will show you how to create it using Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Dimension. I've been trying to hack this one for a while. It's been a big one that's been requested and I finally found a way to do it and I can't wait to share that with you. Alright, so I'm going to start off in Illustrator with a new artboard open, a new file, and I'm going to freeball this one. I don't have an exact reference image because again this is going to be on the looser side of realism, but it's going to get us mostly to where we want. So I'm just going to start by drawing a rectangle and I'm going to imagine that I'm looking at the side of it. So this type of container has a taper, a slope, and it's rounded at the bottom. So I'm going to recreate that the best I can. So I'm going to take these anchor points here and I'm going to use Shift and my arrow key and I'm going to just nudge those over the same amount. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. And from here, I'm going to add 2 new anchor points to my selection, and I'm going to use my A arrow and highlight both of those and use the align tool to center align those, and then the horizontal align to get this bottom section. Because I'm trying to create that like squeezed, like where the heat sealed the top. That's what I'm trying to recreate here. So we have these, I'm going to taper in these points. But that's going to give us our squeezy top part. Next I'm going to come down to this section here, selecting both of these anchor points with my A arrow and rounding up to maybe about there. And then I can even bring these up a little bit and position these a little bit higher up on the curve, and then nudge these in maybe like 3 more nudges. And I'm thinking that I need to bring in the anchor points even more so that it looks really sealed. So highlighting those, just moving those in an even amount of space. We'll see how that looks once I go to 3D materials and click on inflate. And this, once I rotate around, you'll be able to see it's starting to come together. I'm going to click on inflate both sides so you can see now what we're going for. From here I'm going to adjust down the volume and increase the depth just slightly. Maybe bring the volume down a little bit. And this is where we can also play with our shape again to make it the width that we want. And this is also where I think I'm going to have to bring in these points even more until we're at this point. So as you can see from the side angle, it's definitely tapered. It's giving us the volume that we want. This is why I like inflate for this tutorial, because it does give us just a little bit of extra realism to it, where extrude or revolve wouldn't really be able to give us all of these different angles and shapes. So I can bring the volume up or down. I can also scoot in the bottom portion here that we've created and just see how it works with my shape. We'll do volume at 69% and then scoot in and nudge just a little bit more, but that's giving us a good shape. I know that the squeeze tubes have more of the opposite shape where it's larger at the top and smaller at the bottom. So that's where it's just gonna have to be, just is what it is with this, because we're very limited by the tools that we have, but we'll be able to get most of it to match. So I can also bring down the bevel here, or bring down those anchor points. I'm just doing some tweaks just to get us the most realistic shape that we can get. You could play with like twists or tapering, but I just don't really see those giving us much help here. So I'm gonna just leave it playing with the volume and the inflate settings. and I'm pretty happy with that. The other thing that I'm going to do is draw another rectangle. That's the height of that pressed area. And I'm going to actually make a line that is the width as well. So now I have height references and I have the line that we're going to create from. So I'm just using this as a guide because I'm going to go to my stroke settings over here. And I'm going to increase the weight until it matches that height that I have selected. So it looks like at about 26 points, it gets us to the height of that pressed heat sealed section. And then I'm going to select dashed line and I'm going to choose 1 point. And I'm going to make the gap about 2 points there. This is going to be those press mark lines, and they'll overlay that top section there. So now that we have that, we can click on extrude and you'll see that it creates those. The depth needs to be way less, maybe like, I don't know, 5 points? Because we could technically use 1 and have it go through the object in dimension so that it's the front and the back if you wanted to show both. That way you don't have to create 2 and position 2, you can just have it go through the shape, but it won't really, because this will probably be opaque, it probably won't show through. We can also add a bevel to this if that'll help it look a little bit more real. And then we can bevel both sides so that again it looks good on the front and the back. Next I need to create the piece at the bottom here. I actually just can do a fill. And I'm just lining it up. We can adjust all these sizes and dimension to get it really perfect, but I'm just choosing this size for now. So we'll need 2 of these shapes because I want one to be the part that's attached to it and then the other the part that like flips out. So I'm going to click on extrude and that'll give me that top base part that will connect to the tube, and then I'm going to make a copy by holding Option and dragging away from that shape. And this one I'm going to add a bevel to, a round bevel, because I like how that looks, like thinking about like a Navino, just having something that's a little more round I think will serve us well on this. So that's the top, this is the little part that flips open, and we can adjust the depth down. Then I want to add that little indent, the little grippy part that helps you open things. I'm sorry, I'm so terrible with the names. Someone gave me the word for, what did I call it? The smell hole in one of my videos, and someone said, that's the degassing chamber. Oh, it was on my coffee tutorial, and that was so funny to me. I'm like, thank you for telling me the words for things, because I'm just going to make it up. I don't know all of the terms. Alright, so I drew a rectangle, and I'm curving the top part of the rectangle, and I'm going to click extrude again, and bring down the depth to like, I don't know, maybe 9 points for now. And I'm going to add a bevel to this as well. And I'm going to choose classic outline because that gives us that step in that I think looks really nice and convincing. And just adjusting some of the settings here so that it is a little more natural. See, now this is like curved in, so it's not so harsh of an outline. I really like how that looks. And the width, we can adjust that. But you want to get something kind of like this in the end. And then if you were looking at the back of it, you'd also want to have that piece that connects the top and the bottom, the flippy part. And it's usually kind of like dented in, right? Just like slightly. So I'm going to create those anchor points and I'm going to click on extrude, bring down the depth a lot. I might just type in like 3 points for that. I don't know that a bevel would help, but let's just see what's going on. No, I don't think I like a bevel. I think just having something regular and thin would achieve what we are going for. I could also just make this a line. Let me experiment with that really quick. I could also just make this a line that extrudes out. And this could be a good alternative if you really wanted to focus on the back and have it like realistic. This might be the better option because it just adds a little bit more dimension. Let me rotate that around so you can see. Like it will have a dent now, and that's kind of what that lid does. So I'm actually going to delete that one. We'll go with this one. This one looks just a little bit more convincing, and I'll show you how to attach that to the back. Okay, now that we have all of our pieces, I'm going to highlight everything and collect for export as multiple assets. And then from here, I'm going to rename them. All right, now that I have those all labeled, I'm going to highlight all of them and make sure that OBJ is selected as my format. And then down here, click on Export. All right, now I'm going to open up a new file in Dimension just by clicking Create New. And what I always do is come to this zoom button at the top and click on 100 so that I can increase the size, holding Option and dragging the corner to make it a very large canvas. That'll help with my render, making it crispy. That's what I need. And then I just start dragging and dropping in my pieces, kind of getting them situated, not perfectly, but just enough so that I can see about where they go. I'll use some align tools in a minute to get everything really squared away. Okay, so I'm going to highlight all of these, come to my align tool, and then click on center and center. And then now that I have those, I can zoom in and get my camera bookmarks positioned. I'm going to choose to angle things this way just because those tools that show up when I click on the OBJ files, they just work better when I have camera bookmarks and everything angled this direction instead of like at the diagonal. So I'm going to label that one front. And then I'm going to reposition things. Zoom in a little bit. See, I like how there's just like a subtle line right there. I think that looks really nice. I can also adjust the height. So the top I'm thinking can be maybe like 0.5. And I'm going to reposition that down so that it looks like there is a natural gap. That's why we created two different pieces so that there could be that separation there. And then same with the tube. I'm going to bring the tube down and maybe a little bit forward for this. Let's just see how we feel about this. I might actually do the opposite now. I might actually make the lid top back to 0.8 and move that up, and then make the lid flippy part at the bottom like 0.4. And I can use this button, this handy one that says move to the ground, to help me make sure that it is indeed touching the ground. And we were so close, but yeah, I'm just doing my little tweaks here to get it to line up. I'm going to bring the lighting down under environment, the global intensity. I'm going to bring that down so I can just get one little sneak peek at how it's looking so far. So far, I am liking that. I'm going to bring in my grippy next. And I'm just going to position this so that it fits on the bottom here. Let me get a better view. Moving it around until it fits recessed within the lid. All right, and I can also adjust the depth. That would be on the Z, so I can do like a 0.2 for that. And that gives us the illusion of something that's like a tab to open without having to do too much heavy lifting. All right, and then I'm going to come back to the top because we need to add those pressy lines, dragging those in, rotating, getting everything in place. And here's where I was talking about tweaking some things. All right, so we got pretty close with these, with the lines. Just gonna move them over, and I can make it slightly taller or slightly shorter, sorry, on the y-axis, I'm actually going to click the lock button so it scales it in proportion. I'm going to select 0.85. No, what about 0.88? That's good. And then for the height, I'm going to unselect that link and I'm going to do 0.8 actually, so that the height changes but the x-axis stays the same. Let's see how this is looking from the front. Let me click on that. Hey, it's looking pretty good. You know, it's not perfect, but we're getting somewhere. Okay, so also for this, I'm going to zoom in a little bit more. Select the lines again. If I go to the side, you'll see what I'm talking about, where I might need to make the depth like 0.3. Nope, too much, 0.2. And then I can move these so that it's visible from the front and the back. I might do on the lines, maybe like 0.22. Yeah, with a little nudge, maybe 0.21. Yeah, I think 0.21 is the sweet spot there. That puts the lines on both sides. Okay, so coming back to the front, zooming in, and I'm going to update my camera bookmark so that it is a little bit closer. And then using this orbit tool, I'm going to rotate around. And this is where you can see that it doesn't line up perfectly, right? So if you were doing renderings of the front and the back, I would probably just move this so that I would probably move this tube back so that it wasn't showing this lid, unless you like that look. But you might not be able to get all of your renderings all in one go. You might have to kind of batch it out depending on how you want it to look. But I am going to drag in that hinge that we had talked about. Ooh, let me save this back because I like this angle for the back. All right, and so I'm bringing in that hinge so that it looks a little more realistic from the back. Any little details that we can add just give it that much more of a convincing look. So now we come back, we can zoom in, and we can see it did create that little hinge. I might bring it forward just a touch. As long as it is touching, which it is, and it does look like that separate piece. You can see there's a bit of a gap, but I think that it looks okay from the front and the back. And I like flipping from one to the other. That's pretty darn close. I'm pretty happy with that. Cool, so now we're gonna add some graphics to this. So now that I have my colors and my graphics, I'm going to take the hex value and bring that over to, actually I'm gonna group all of these together and just call this all Lotion, and that way I can apply a matte material to the entire thing and it'll lock in whatever changes that I make to one, it'll change it for all of them. So I will add in my hex value there. Now I have a tan container, and then I'm going to come back and export my graphics here. I have everything selected and I'm going to choose as single asset because I want them all grouped together. And just call it graphics, export as a PNG. JPEGs or PNGs are what you can bring in. And then once I have that, I just drag it and drop it on top of my mockup here. Oh, but it gave me a white background, so let me go change that in my settings. Under this menu, the gear, let me choose transparent. So if you have your graphic positioned and you're like, it's in the right spot, I just need to change something about it, you can come to this graphic, click on this window and the file, and then just drag in the updated graphic there. And then you can see that everything will scale, it'll be in the same place, it's just different with your changes. Oh, one last step I like to do is come down to the lighting and materials, and I like to click this 3-point light. I think it just adds a nice set of dimension, and I like to rotate it slightly so that I have a nice cast shadow for my final rendering. But let's see how it looks. And here's the final look. All right, designers, that wraps up this tutorial. Thank you so much for following along. I hope it was really helpful. If you like my content, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'll be posting more videos soon. If you enjoyed this tutorial, leave a thumbs up and a comment for what you want to see next. Until next time.